We've seen ugly situations where curiosity has driven some crazily intuitive explorers to a dead end. Human curiosity and desire to understand nature fuels our ever-ongoing exploration of humanity's greatest mysteries. However, several significant yet unresolved mysteries revealed throughout history have undoubtedly put the world's intellectual prowess to the test. I dare you to crack the codes and get enlisted on the Guinness World Records by solving these 10 unexplained historical mysteries. Number 1. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Are they real? If yes, where are they? One of the 7 wonders of the ancient world mentioned by Hellenic culture was the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. They were described as an amazing work of architecture, a vast green mountain made of mud bricks with a rising succession of tiered gardens filled with a variety of trees, shrubs, and vines. It was rumored to have been constructed in the ancient Iraqi city of Babylon, close to the present-day town of Hilla. The word hanging in modern English has a narrower connotation than the Greek word kremastos, which is translated as overhanging and refers to trees being planted on a raised structure like a terrace. The Neo-Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II, who ruled between 605 and 562 BC, is said to have created the Hanging Gardens alongside the enormous palace known as the Wonder of Mankind for his Median bride, Queen Amatis, who allegedly missed the lush hills and valleys of her native country. The legendarily powerful Queen Semiramis is also credited with building the Hanging Gardens, earning them the alternative name of the Hanging Gardens of Semiramis. The gardens are not mentioned in any extant Babylonian writings, and no archaeological evidence has been discovered in Babylon. This fantastical set of gardens built in the ancient city of Babylon in present-day Iraq has been described by ancient writers, and none could explain exactly when these gardens were created, and some ancient writers considered them to be a wonder of the world. The roots of the trees in the Hanging Gardens are buried on an upper terrace rather than in the ground, according to Philo of Byzantium, who wrote about them around 250 BC. The remains of a garden that fits this description haven't been discovered by archaeologists who have dug up Babylon to this point. Archaeologists are now forced to wonder if the Hanging Gardens actually existed and where they are now. It appears unlikely that this enigma will ever be fully resolved because battles and plundering have damaged both Nineveh and Babylon in the last 2 decades. Number 2. Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum Theft. Stealing is not a new thing, but when crime-fighting officials like FBI fail to apprehend the thieves, people begin to wonder. Don't forget, you could still enlist your name in the Guinness World Records if you think the crime fighters didn't do enough. 13 items of art were taken from the Boston area Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in the early hours of March 18, 1990. 2 individuals who claimed to be police officers responding to a disturbance were allowed in by the guards, and over the course of the following hour, the criminals robbed the museum while the guards were bound. There have been no arrests made, no works have been found, and the case remains unsolved. The FBI and art dealers have estimated the stolen works to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Following this was the greatest bounty ever offered by a private organization. The museum offered a $10 million reward for information resulting in the return of the works of art. But still, there was no catch. Art collector Isabella Stewart Gardner originally purchased the pieces with the intention of having them permanently at the museum, alongside the rest of her collection. One of these was the Concert by Johannes Vermeer, which is regarded as the most priceless, unrecovered picture in the entire world. The Soul Seascape by Rembrandt, The Storm on the Sea of Galilee were also missing from the museum, together with a largely worthless eagle finial and Chinese goo. Other works by Edgar Degas, Rembrandt, Govert Flinck, and Edouard Manet were also stolen. Experts were perplexed by the selection of art because even more priceless pieces were ignored by the thieves. Empty frames are still hanging as a tribute to the works that are still missing and as a stand-in for their eventual return because the collections and their arrangement are permanent. The robbery was allegedly organized by a criminal group, according to the FBI. The FBI relied heavily on interrogation techniques, undercover spies, and sting operations to gather information because the case lacks substantial physical evidence. They have mostly concentrated on the Boston Mafia, which at the time was engaged in an intriguing conflict. One theory holds that gangster Bobby Donati who was assassinated a year after the robbery, planned it to negotiate for the release of his capo regime from prison. Some reports claim that a gang in Boston's Dorchester neighborhood stole the paintings. However, they continue to deny any involvement, even after a sting operation resulted in the imprisonment of some of them. Despite being promised reward money, shortened prison terms, or even freedom in exchange for information that led to the recovery of the artwork, everyone has denied any involvement, and some even provided leads that proved useless. Number 3. Imperial Transantarctic Expedition, the Endurance. The word endurance in this context tells you more of a courage plus determination. Whether successful or not, sometimes it's worth a try. The last significant voyage of the heroic era of Antarctic exploration is known to be the Imperial Transantarctic Expedition of 1914 to 1917. The mission, which Sir Ernest Shackleton designed, aimed to complete the very first maritime crossing of the Antarctic continent. Shackleton's expedition was unsuccessful in achieving this goal, but was instead celebrated for its incredible endurance. Shackleton had previously participated in the Antarctic on the 1901 to 1904 Discovery Expedition and had commanded the 1907 to 1909 Nimrod Expedition. In this new endeavor, he suggested that in order to prepare for a transcontinental march across the South Pole to the Ross Sea, one should sail to the Weddell Sea and land a beach party near Vaucelle Bay. The Ross Sea Party, a supporting group, would set up camp in McMurdo Sound in the interim, and from there, a chain of supply depots would span the Ross Ice Shelf to the base of the Beardmore Glacier. The transcontinental team wouldn't be able to carry enough supplies for the entire journey. Therefore, these depots would be crucial for their survival. 2 ships were needed for the expedition: Aurora, captained by Aeneas Mackintosh, for the Ross Sea Party, and Endurance, commanded by Ernest Shackleton, for the Weddell Sea Party. Unfortunately, before it could get up to Vaucelle Bay, Endurance encountered difficulties and became entrapped in the Weddell Sea's ice. Throughout the Antarctic winter of 1915, it was dragged to the north while being trapped in the pack ice. 28 of the ship's crew members were left stranded on the ice after the ship was eventually smashed by the ice and sank. The party reached the hostile, deserted Elephant Island using lifeboats that had been salvaged from the ship after spending months in temporary shelters while the ice continued its northward drift. James Caird took Shackleton and 5 other group members 800 miles on open water before they arrived in South Georgia. The soldiers who had stayed on Elephant Island were finally rescued by Shackleton, who was able to transport them back to the mainland without suffering any fatalities. On the ocean below, the Endurance wreck was discovered in 2022 and was extremely well preserved. The Ross Sea Party overcame significant obstacles on the other side of the continent to complete its goal. During a gale, Aurora was blown from her moorings and was unable to make a successful return, leaving the shore party stranded without the necessary supplies or tools. Unfortunately, 3 persons perished before the expedition was eventually saved, despite the fact that the depots could still be laid. Number 4. Fate of the Ark of the Covenant. As many in the Christian faith have been taught, the Bible is a book of solutions, and indeed, the Bible has been a source of comfort and serenity for those in need for millennia. Yet, the Bible is not a reference work, a textbook, or a how-to guide. As such, we can't seek for answers about the Ark's whereabouts from the Bible. The Ark of the Covenant, which contained tablets containing the 10 Commandments, was housed in the First Temple. But according to history, a Babylonian army led by King Nebuchadnezzar II stormed Jerusalem in 587 BC, looting the city and razing the First Temple, the Jewish people's temple of worship. The Ark was either brought back to Babylon or hidden before the city was taken, according to ancient texts. The Ark might have also been destroyed when the city was taken over. In any case, nobody knows where the Ark is. Many tales and legends regarding the Ark's fate have been told since its departure. According to one legend, the Ark eventually arrived in Ethiopia, where it is now kept. However, according to a different legend, the Ark was divinely concealed and won't be revealed until the Messiah comes. But where is the Ark exactly? According to God's instructions, the Israelis constructed the Ark to house their holiest possessions, including the 10 Commandments. The Ark was housed inside the temple that Solomon had constructed for God as a haven for safety. Jerusalem has been gone ever since it was taken by the Babylonians in 587 BC. There are numerous hypotheses as to how it ended up. One notable one is that the Ark was successfully smuggled by Solomon and Queen Sheba's hidden son out of Jerusalem and into Egypt before the Babylonians launched their attack. From there, it might have relocated to Ethiopia, where it is still said to exist today. One small snag though, nobody is permitted to see the Ark, according to a monastery in Aksum, which claims to still own it today. One monk is chosen to live his entire life in the compound surrounding the Ark, praying over it until he passes away, and someone else continues where he left off. Is the Ark present there then? Well, no one knows, because the only person who is certain is sitting there right now and will never leave. Number 5. Could Jimmy Hoffa have disappeared into thin air? Hoffa started out as a union activist at a young age, and by his mid-20s had established himself as a significant regional figure in the IBT. He was the IBT's national vice president by 1952, and from 57 to 1971, he served as the organization's general president. Through the National Master Freight Agreement, he was able to win the first international agreement for Teamsters rates in 1964. During his tenure as its head, he significantly contributed to the expansion and development of the union, which eventually grew to be the largest by membership in the U.S., with over 2.3 million members at its peak. From the beginning of his Teamsters employment, Hoffa became linked with organized crime. This involvement persisted until his mysterious death/disappearance in 1975. At 2 separate trials in 1964, he was found guilty of witness intimidation, conspiracy, attempted bribery, and mail and wire fraud. In 1967, he was found guilty and given a 13-year prison term. He handed in his resignation as union president in the middle of 1971 as part of a deal with American President Richard Nixon. He was later freed, although Hoffa was prohibited from union operations until 1980. He made an unsuccessful attempt to rescind the directive to win back support and reclaim IBT leadership. In 1975, Hoffa vanished on July 30th. He was formally pronounced dead in 1982, and it is widely agreed that the Mafia was responsible for his assassination. The legacy of Hoffa and the circumstances surrounding his disappearance are still up for discussion. On July 30th, 1975, in Oakland County, Michigan, the Teamster Union head who was connected to the organized crime vanished. He was ruled legally dead in 1982. His killer's identities and the whereabouts of his body remain a mystery. Many locations in Detroit and Oakland County have been looked for by police and forensic anthropologists, without success. One widely held belief was that Hoffa's body was interred in New Jersey's Giants Stadium. This hypothesis, however, has been refuted. The wonder of Stonehenge Erection. The mystery surrounding Stonehenge is among the most well-known in the entire globe. In southwest of England, in the county of Wiltshire, you will find this mysterious Stonehenge. The unusual stone circle was constructed as far back as around 2000 BCE. Each stone used to build Stonehenge weighs over 50,000 pounds, and each one originated from a quarry some 200 miles distant. 2 miles west of Amesbury in Wiltshire, Stonehenge stands tall like horizontal lintel stones, is an outer ring of vertical sarsen that are each about 13 feet high, 7 feet broad, and weigh around 25 tons. Also, a ring of smaller blue stones surrounds it, containing freestanding trilithons, which are 2 larger vertical sarsens connected by a single lintel. The Neolithic and Bronze Age monument complex with the densest concentration of structures in England, comprising several hundred tumuli, contains stones which are embedded in earthworks. Stonehenge, according to archaeologists, was built sometime between 3000 and 2000 BC. From its earliest days, Stonehenge might have served as a cemetery. The ditch and bank were already dug about 3000 BC, and deposits containing bone fragments lasted for a minimum of another 500 years. It is obvious that the creating of this monument during the Paleolithic age seemed like an impossibility. How did the locals get approximately 100 of these enormous rocks thus far without using anything but horse-drawn carriages? How did they arrange them once they had and transported them to the Salisbury Plain? What Stonehenge was used for, though, is arguably the most crucial query and the most serious puzzle. Also, there were several other henges built during the same period as Stonehenge, but no one is certain what their purpose was. The most widely accepted theory is that a religious or spiritual ceremony played some role in the creation of the hinges. Moreover, 63 burials took place at Stonehenge, because Stonehenge is aligned with the sunset during the winter. Some people think it may have had astrological significance. Others continue to think that because of the unique acoustic properties of the stones, they might have been employed as a component of a therapeutic technique. We may never fully understand Stonehenge's purpose and how it was built because its builders did not leave any written records behind. Number 7. D.B. Cooper. An unnamed man hijacked Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305, a Boeing 727 aircraft, on November 24, 1971. When it was in American airspace, he was given the nickname D.B. Cooper by the media. The hijacker wanted 4 parachutes upon landing in Seattle and demanded $200,000 in ransom, equal to $1,338,000 in 2021, while claiming to be equipped with a bomb during the journey from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. The hijacker gave the flight crew the order to refuel the aircraft and launch a second flight to Mexico City, with a refueling stop in Reno, Nevada. After releasing the passengers in Seattle, the hijacker opened the plane's aft door, opened the stairway, and parachuted into the darkness over Southwest Washington, approximately 30 minutes after it took off from Seattle. No one ever recognized or located the hijacker, and he was never seen since then. Later on, a tiny sum of ransom was discovered in 1980 on the Columbia River's banks. The money's discovery sparked a new wave of interest in the mystery, but it did not reveal any additional information regarding the hijacker's identity or whereabouts, and the remaining ransom money was never found. Although the hijacker gave his name as Dan Cooper, he was mistakenly referred to as D.B. Cooper by a reporter. The Federal Bureau of Investigation conducted an inquiry and investigations for 45 years following the hijacking and compiled a substantial case file, but finally came to no firm conclusions. The incident continues to be the only instance of air piracy in commercial aviation history that has not been solved. Because of a number of factors, including Cooper's lack of proper equipment, the fact that his drop zone was heavily forested, his total absence, thorough information of his landing area, and the mysterious disappearance of the remaining ransom money, which suggests that it was never spent, the FBI believes Cooper did not survive his jump. The FBI formally stopped its active investigation into the Northwest hijacking case in July 2016, despite the fact that journalists, hobbyists, professional detectives, and some others continue to follow a variety of hypotheses on Cooper's identity, success, and destiny. Immediate and significant modifications for commercial aviation, as well as tighter airport security measures, resulted from Cooper's hijacking, and several copies in the years that followed. Metal detectors were added, luggage checks became required, and extra scrutiny was applied to those who paid cash for their tickets on the day of departure. Number 8. The Periraised Map. This map was found in 1929, but only around a third of it has survived. It was concealed inside a stack of papers that a museum had considered insignificant. The map was created and autographed by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Periraised in about 1513. West Europe, North Africa, and Brazil's eastern coast are depicted on the map. The only current representation of this map is supposed to have been created using Christopher Columbus's infamous lost map as a model. The Antarctic shore, which experts believe was not discovered until 1820, is also included on the Periraised Map. The Periraised Map was one of the most precise globe maps of its era, and the fact that it has only been preserved as a piece adds to its mystique. Periraised lived more than 300 years before Antarctica was discovered. Here's one big question. Did he have access to a map of the continent then? How could he have come up with the map? The German theologian Gustav Adolf Deissmann's philological studies led to the map's accidental discovery on October 9, 1929. The non-Islamic books in the Topkapi Palace Library were to be catalogued by him per a request from the Turkish Ministry of Education. The director Halil Edhem found several neglected bundles of material when searching the palace for ancient maps and charts at Deissmann's request, which he then sent to Deissmann. Deissmann showed the map to the Orientalist Paul Kahl, who recognized it as a map created by Periraised after realizing it might be a rare find. The discovery created an international sensation since it was the only duplicate of Christopher Columbus's world map then known to exist, and it was the only map from the 16th century to depict South America in its correct longitudinal position with respect to Africa. The four compass roses, too large and too small, from which lines of bearing radiate, serve as a visual cue that the map is a portolan chart. Although some analyses claim that the map is an azimuthal equidistant projection centered in Cairo, a 1998 analysis by Stephen Dutch of the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay reveals a better fit with a position close to the intersection of the current prime meridian and the equator. Along with some inside information that is primarily false and imaginative, the map has extensive notes in Ottoman Turkish around its margins. Number 9. The Bimini Road. Divers in the Bahamas have been perplexed by this odd rock formation for years. A record-holding freediver named Jacques Mayol and two buddies made the initial discovery. Just off the shore of North Bimini Island, they dove 3 fathoms, or approximately 18 feet deep, and found something they referred to as the pavement. The limestone blocks that make up the Bimini Road were apparently constructed between 1900 and 3500 years ago. One weird fact about this is that long before this was discovered, the trance healer Edgar Cayce reputedly foretold that the Atlantean ruins will be discovered in the Bimini Islands. Joseph Manson Valentine, Jacques Mayol, and Robert Angove came across what they initially thought was a pavement of visibly rounded stones of various sizes and thicknesses on September 2, 1968, while diving in 3 fathoms of water off the northwest shore of the North Bimini Island. The linear structure formed by these stones, which runs northeast to southwest, is now referred to as either the Bimini Road or the Bimini Wall. The Bimini Wall is parallel to and shoreward to comparable linear landforms. The Bimini Wall is made up of flat-lying, tabular, generally rectangular, polygonal, and irregular blocks, as are 2 other linear features that are shoreward of it. The uniformity and rectangularity of the blocks that make up these features are substantially exaggerated in descriptions of the Bimini Road that can be found in many books and articles. The longest of the 3 linear features is the Bimini Road, which is 0.8 kilometers long and has a sharp hook at its southwest end. It is made of stone blocks with its horizontal dimensions up to 3 to 4 meters, with an average size of 2 to 3 meters. The age of this feature has been attempted to be ascertained using various methods. They include uranium-thorium dating of the marine limestone on which the Bimini Road is built and direct radiocarbon dating of the stones that make up the road. The University of Miami's Department of Geology's Radiocarbon Laboratory began dating samples from an E.A. Shin collected core from the Bimini Road in 1977 and 1978. These dates are chronologically consistent since the cement that held the shells together to form the beach rock core from the Bimini Road dated earlier than the beach rock itself. These results suggest that the Bimini Road's shells are roughly 3,500 years old when measured without accounting for environmental and temporal fluctuations in radiocarbon. According to geologists and archaeologists, the Bimini Road is a naturally occurring structure made of beach rock that has been fractured into roughly rectangular, polygonal, and irregular blocks by orthogonal and other joints. Number 10. Nazca Lines. When conquistador Pedro Cieza de Leon first saw these unusual lines in Peru in 1553, he initially thought they were simply route markings. The odd and extremely purposeful patterns made by the Nazca Lines weren't discovered until 1940, when a historian from Long Island University became interested. The Nazca Lines, which cover an area of around 170 square miles, have the appearance of many animals, such as a condor, hummingbird, monkey, and spider. Other pictures have been discovered throughout time, including a whale, a spider, a pair of hands, and a man. The Nazca Lines creation is unknown, just like Stonehenge's, and neither is its purpose. It's almost inconceivable that someone could draw such perfect shapes without having access to an aerial view of the scene. Geoglyphs known as the Nazca Lines were carved into the Nazca Desert's dirt in southern Peru between 500 BC and 500 CE. Individuals carved depressions or shallow incisions in the desert floor, removing pebbles and exposing various shades of earth. The Nazca Lines are divided into two primary periods: the Periraised phase from 400 to 200 BCE and the Nazca phase from 200 to 500 BCE. Drone use had uncovered between 80 and 100 new figures in the years prior to 2020, and archaeologists think there are still more to be discovered. There are figurative designs of animals and vegetation, in addition to the majority of lines that are straight across the environment. The unique figurative geoglyph patterns range in size from 440 to 1,100 yards wide. The group spans an area of around 50 kilometers squared, and the total length of all the lines is over 1,300 kilometers. They were created by scraping away the top layer of reddish-brown iron oxide-coated pebbles to expose a subsoil that was yellow-gray. Although they can also be viewed from nearby slopes and other high sites, some of the Nazca Lines form formations that are best observed from the air. According to reports, the lines started to deteriorate in 2012 as a result of an increase in squatters living there. The complexity of the figures varies: a human, hummingbird, spider, fish, condor, heron, monkey, lizard, dog, cat, and more than 70 zoomorphic patterns can be found among the hundreds of simple lines and geometric shapes. Trees and flowers are examples of other shapes. Although scholars have different theories about the design's intentions, they all generally attribute religious importance to them.